can't change the way that I look.
It's
And
funny.
sometimes it does affect me, to be honest. But why is it affecting me? And do I need to be affected by it? The answer is probably no. So note to self is that I need to let go of this thought. And people will think of you, like different types of people will always think of you a certain way.
Yeah, it's more like everyone's different, man. Everyone has their own fucking things that they do, their own particular ways or things that they would just action by themselves. Hello, I'm Sam.
And I'm Amelia.
Welcome back to Us, the Duo podcast where we aim to build a better mindset for all better relationships.
This week we are talking about mindset. So the mindset around holding ourselves back and showing our true selves in society and feeling self-conscious.
Yeah, and I think everyone is quite different depending on that situation.
Everyone's just different.
Yeah, everyone's different in general, yeah.
Nice try, nice try.
Yes, so feeling self-conscious, and everyone is different. Everyone has different flavors for different persuasions. So, yeah, it's just like thinking of a perspective that you have a particular flavor for a pizza. You like something that's your own. Like for me, I like fucking Hawaiian pizza.
The margaritas, the basic bitches.
Yeah, and you might like fucking...
That's what I like.
Yeah, that's
so
it.
If anyone's ordering us pizza, Hawaiian and margaritas,
that's
please.
it, man.
And yeah, on top of that, everyone is different. And I think it's in a sense of business for those business people out there. Every business has a different point of difference and why the unique selling points. And I think this really relates to us being humans. And this topic really that we're going to touch on today is what are some things that we used to think that we were weird and we held ourselves back from showing our true selves because we didn't fit the social quote unquote norm or what people think is normal, and where we're actually now okay with this and we've come to terms with it so that even though it's weird, you roll with it. So we're going to pick apart and share some of our points where we used to think we're weird and whatevs.
Yeah, so reflecting back on my past, there was definitely moments where I compared myself to friends and family and people around me. And I definitely was self-conscious about the actions that I did or whatever that I was doing at that point in time.
So what did you used to think of yourself like as a person?
As a person back then? Wow. I was definitely a interesting character. I think from me back then, I was very, very loud, very, very abrupt, and borderline kind of rude at times.
I think still rude.
Or you relax. I've changed. I've softened the blow a bit.
You're a
there.
different man.
I was a different guy, and I think it was just part of self-discovery at the time because I was really just trying to figure out who I was.
Yeah. So for me, what I used to think about myself, I actually, from a really young age or even very early on, say like 12, high school, I did already think or feel that I was very different to other people. And a lot of things that I feel or think is always very different to what people do in social society. So I was always holding back and showing my true self. And how I felt against other people is like, I think it's just that one thing in my head is like, why aren't I like these people? And that was the question that I always asked myself. Yeah,
when you actually bring that up, that is something that I do relate to because I remember, like, you know how you're in a situation where you're like, oh, you want to do something or you want to say something, but everyone else doesn't want to do it. And you don't want to be that weird or odd person out that wants to do it.
You don't want to stand out from the crowd. And I think that's also an upbringing, especially Asian upbringing, where particularly in my family, I was always taught not to stand out. Like, don't make a scene, don't be loud, don't let people look at you, don't do something where people will see you in the streets. And that really held me back in being myself. And by having a different opinion, you are naturally going to stand out. So that went against what people have told me to do. But really, I actually do have a different opinion. And it's not about saying that you need to do it my way or you need to do it like this. It's just sharing my thoughts. And I always thought that I couldn't do that.
Yeah. When I think about friendships, when you're in a group sense, you would hold back on the things that you would want to tell them or you want to do. Like if you've got a group that says, "Hey, look, what do we want to do?" and there's something that you really feel strongly about, like as in you want to go hang out or eat at this place or do this, but no one says anything, or and you don't want to step in and say, "I want to fucking do this." You hold yourself back and wait until everyone sort of gives their own opinion.
Yeah, I do that as well. And I used to always think I was weird or different by doing that because on the flip side of not standing out, the biggest thing that my dad taught me is always give things a go, always be willing to try, and don't hold yourself back in that way. So I guess that was sort of a conflicting thing that I've learned throughout my life. It's like don't stand out, but then go and try things. And I've always had that mindset. So I was never afraid to try things. And even though I have a comfort zone, that doesn't usually hold me back because I'm like, yeah, I do want to try that. I want to explore. I want to be adventurous and try different things. And I've noticed throughout even just coming out of high school and then meeting people throughout work and career and new friends, a lot of people do hold themselves back from that comfort zone. They're like, oh, I don't know about this. I don't want to try it. Or like, even as simple as trying a new thing on the menu. I've realized a lot of people are afraid to try different things from what they've known. So for me as a person in Korea and like within friends group or just social environment, I've always in my head was the first one if someone's like, "Hey, let's go like there's this project here. Does anyone want to go travel 3 hours down the road, 3 hours and go, record social media for this person?" And that's not my job, but in my head I'm like, "Hell yeah, like that's an experience. I want to give it a go." I guess at the same time, I didn't really speak out and be like, yeah, I want to do it because it would be good to go with a friend or would be good to go with someone. And because no one stepped up and said yes as well, I never stood out and said yes. So that's the part that I always saw myself that was different to other people because people truly don't want to go because they truly don't want to go. But within me, I held myself back from showing my true self is because no one else did it.
Yeah, I kind of feel like a part of that can come down to peer pressure too, don't you think?
Yeah, I guess it could be peer pressure, but in a different way. Like peer
Mm.
pressure because there has been no pressure. Like no one is doing it. So you're like, okay, I won't do it either. Same thing with uni. I had friends in that group and no one else went out to meet other people. Deep down, if I truly asked myself, did I want to go out and meet new people? The answer is yes. But because no one else went out to meet other people, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to stay in this circle as well. And that's the biggest regret, even to this day, is that I didn't go out and truly listen to my own voice and be like, I do want to go out and meet people. I do want to be that social person, be a bit more extroverted and not show my introverted side. And yeah, to this day, I could have made a lot more friends and people that I could connect with today.
See, for me, I was somewhat the opposite. I was very sociable. I was always the one that went out to meet a lot of people, and I mentioned the peer pressure part because to me, peer pressure it had affected me a lot more because I was more conscious about what my friends would want or judge based off if I were to come out and say something.
But is that because you're being considerate or is that because you're afraid of being judged?
I think it's a combination of the two, eh? I think it's a combination of two because definitely that part of being peer pressure was being judged. Of course, because it could be an unknown perspective of you don't know if your friends feel the same way as you do, and then you're scared of being judged on, oh, you're an idiot for doing this or something negative about it.
Mm.
So I think it was a part of that was that peer pressure component.
But why were you afraid of being judged for voicing a certain activity that you want to do?
Quite opposite to you, I was very much someone that relied on friends. I was always around people and I was always taught to be around people and I never really did things alone. So even if I was the odd one out, I'd feel very uncomfortable. So I think it was really just part of me was I was just not confident in being alone. And I
Mm.
think I didn't want to be alone. And I think that's why I felt that
So
peer
you just
pressure.
wanted to fit in, and if
Yeah,
you said something that was very different, you're afraid that people won't do it with you?
I guess so. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, another one I could think about that sometimes still gets me to this day that I think I'm very different is I'm very highly alert. So I pick up and notice a lot of small things about characters or personalities or feelings. And still to this day, I don't truly understand why. I have read a lot of things. I don't know if it's true. More on the psychology side is if you have went through a challenging upbringing or you've been through a lot of different situations, you become highly alert. So you pick up and observe a lot of things. And maybe that could be why. But the thing that got me very self conscious is like when I pick up on these things, especially about people's characteristics, I'm like, I don't think this person's trustworthy or this person doesn't. I feel like they could show a different side, but a lot of people are good friends with this certain particular person. And I just ask myself, why? Like, am I just too highly alert? Am I just picking and noticing too much about people or people's personalities? And that always got me self conscious because I'm the only one who has questioned this person's intent or person's personality, and it doesn't seem like anyone else has. And it gets me thinking, it's like, are these people just conforming to make friends just to make friends? And do they truly align with them? Or do they truly not notice these things?
So were you more like cautious about expressing your ability to like sniff out people? Is that
Mm,
like if you met someone and all your friends are like, oh yeah, happy, trusting, talking to them, and then you're like, hang on, this person feels a bit weird. Do you reserve yourself back from that, or are you upfront and say,
I
oh,
think I'm just too afraid to speak up and be like, I don't know if this person is who they say they are or what their true intent is. Because they could be still a nice person, but there are some other elements that are, I don't know, just makes them not truly who they show themselves are. And I don't want to speak up in case I'm wrong or in case I'm just overthinking the certain situation, and that's why I've always thought of myself as weird or different in that sense.
in that sense of being weird and different, was that always hindering your ability to express?
I don't think it was hindering my ability to express, but I think it definitely pulls me back from building deeper connections with people because I'm so highly alert that's I wouldn't say all the time that I'm thinking that this person's not 100% trustworthy. But sometimes I'm wondering if I'm overthinking this person. So I build a barrier. I'm like, I'm not going to get close to this person. I'm okay to hang with them, go have coffee, whatever, see them at this an event that I see them. But I don't build a deeper connection with them and be like, hey, let's lean on each other, let's be friends or whatever. And that always is the barrier. So it prevented me from building better connections with people. And
Mm.
yeah, these are questions that I've always asked you as well. Like I talk to you about certain situations and I'm like, is it me? Because it looks like no one else is questioning or saying things. And there are a lot of times where in the end it just turns out that I was actually right. Like I'm not trying to be saying that I'm right or wrong, but I was actually pick up on the right cues and they are actually not 100% who they say they are.
Yeah.
But there are definitely still times where I'm like, okay, they may not be that type of person and they have some flaws, but some people are okay with those flaws, whereas I'm not okay with that because it doesn't align with who I am and who I seek in people that I lean
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. Now that's actually pretty cool. I mean, at
Pretty
that time,
cool.
pretty cool at the time because you were very cautious, especially during your earlier days. And for me, I was actually quite the opposite. I was quite trustworthy of everyone. So
I don't know. This is the other thing. I'm a very conflicting person. I truly believe in people and I put my trust in people, but at the same time, I'm very highly alert of people and what they do to let them fully in. So I have the trustworthy side, but then I'm also very highly alert. And this is the conflicting part that to this day, I'm still battling this.
yeah, and I think it is always going to be an ongoing battle. And I think sometimes I'm a little self-conscious about that too because sometimes people are hard to judge and characters are hard to judge. But like even when I reflect back to my earlier days, man, like I said, I used to just trust everyone and that's how I fucked myself.
Oh,
I remember like, yeah, I just talked to people and I would tell them certain things because I'd like, you just build that relationship where you're comfortable just telling and talking to them and that rapport. And then next minute they go behind your back and they tell that person, and you're like, fuck, I just fucked up. Yeah, it's not a positive light.
yeah, that's a bit sad that people can flip the switch on you.
Yeah, yeah. So something that relates somewhat to your story, and that was more so, I briefly mentioned this, is life outside of work. So I battled this quite oftenly in my earlier 20s. I was taught to be quite closed off when it came to my personal things. And in my earlier times, just working and navigating through just the industry, I would always build great relationships with people. And I recall like those moments where I would be invited to go out and socialize and party and whatnot. And I remember I used to just be self conscious about telling people that I want to go or I don't want to go. And I would
Mm,
always like hide certain things or certain factors about me. So, like, for an example, they would ask me to go out on a Friday night for a piss up. And I'll be like, no, I can't. I'm busy. And they would always ask me, like, why are you busy? And I couldn't give them a direct answer, like whether if I, was spending time with you or I was going to the gym or I was working on the car or tinkering with the car. And I always used to be, one, cautious, but also self conscious about telling them why,
mm.
because I was always afraid that these guys would judge me for what I was doing. When I think back about it, I feel like the reason why I felt that way is because I guess I just didn't have the confidence, or maybe just I didn't have the true understanding of these guys who, I guess from the face value perspective, I always saw them as partying and drinking and always were willing to spend time and have a great time.
Do you think that's part of a people pleasing aspect as well, where you don't want to disappoint them by saying, like, if you truly told them the reason, like, I want to go to the gym or I want to hang out with my girlfriend, there's a people pleasing aspect where you don't want to disappoint them because they'll be like, oh, like, just come for one night and you don't want to disappoint them.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah. And I think it goes hand in hand to my previous story that I was telling you about how I was talking about that peer pressure thing. And I think I somewhat carried that on to my career, because that was definitely moments where I just didn't feel confident about just explaining and showing my true feelings.
Yeah, I can relate to that. And I do, not so much now, but I did actually have that same thing where Friday nights, Thursday nights, they're like, oh, let's all go to the pub and hang, or let's go have a quick drink after work. And it wasn't the fact that I would still say no, but it wasn't the fact that it was the saying no. I just felt really bad and I felt like I had to explain myself, but then I didn't want to explain myself because when I explain myself, they'll try and convince me, and I didn't want to have to use that effort or try to unconvince them to let me go.
Yeah.
But in the end, it's like, why do you need to explain yourself? Like, what's the point? Like, if you truly want to do something for yourself, then you just do it. And that leads into the self conscious thing that I had for myself was really early on. We got into gym. We were really into fitness, but a lot of people weren't into fitness at that point. And fitness wasn't really such a big thing until it became such a big thing on YouTube and everyone's very into being gym junkies. But I was actually really self conscious of the fitness side because I stopped drinking. I stopped eating fast food. I stopped doing all these things that I chose to do for myself. And I ate really healthy and I still do. But at the time, friends, works, colleagues, and people like, oh, come on, like, let's just eat this or let's just have a drink or whatever. And I felt very self conscious that I was so fitness focused. And now that I think back, like, why did I even feel like that? There was no, like, that is something that's actually a good thing. But I felt self conscious and peer pressured, like you said, to do a certain thing or eat a certain way or things that I need to eat or do. And I shouldn't have to feel like that just because I want to look after my own body. And it was earlier than what people are now because a lot of my friends and people now are so into fitness and they truly understand, not probably understand me, but understand the benefits of being healthy.
Yeah, there was definitely a moment that I felt the same way too. It was only a short period. And I remember like my old work colleagues would be like, Sam, why are you fucking, why are you not drinking? Like, And they'll ask shit like that, like, oh, they would give me shit too. They'll suddenly be like, oh, say for an example, we have a Friday lunch that's a work thing, and they buy us like pizza for an example. I'd have these people come out to me and be like, oh, you can't have that because you gotta count your macros, and you gotta eat healthy because your gains. And
Yeah. And as much as they're giving you shit and they're thinking about you counting your macros and stuff, it has a negative effect because it pushes me away. It makes me not want to eat around these people, makes me not want to do the things that I want to do naturally without being like, without taking shit from other people. And that really annoyed me. And yeah, I don't know. I just felt really outcasted in that way where no one could really relate. And that's why I was really self conscious in expressing what I truly like. A quick interruption. We want to thank all of you who have been supporting us. And if you haven't already, please like, comment, and subscribe on our YouTube.
if you found any of our episodes helpful, please share to your friends and family, as it would help us grow.
Now back to the episode.
Yeah, something that just came off the rip was I'm quite self-conscious about me talking to myself. And I predominantly do this more at home, but I would think out loud in terms of something that happened. So if I'm trying to debunk something, I'm trying to figure something out, I'm like, fuck, how do I do this? And sometimes I just sit there or I'll stand there and I'm like, what the hell? I'll talk. I'll have a conversation sometimes. And
One man band.
yeah, I'm a one man fucking solo person trying to figure out something. And that always made me self-conscious because sometimes I just think out loud and I would say stuff, but I always would hold myself back from doing that, obviously in public, because yeah, if someone sees you talking to yourself, that's a bit strange.
But has someone actually said that to you or like looked at you a certain way when you talk to yourself?
Yeah, they'd be like, "Oh, what are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah, ignore that."
Having conversation with Sam, and Sam.
Yeah, I'll just be like, "Oh shit, yeah, I'm just thinking out loud," and like, "You're weird." I'm like, "Oh, thanks." So those are the things that I try to be more conscious about.
But have you changed that now? Like, are you more okay with it?
Well, now I'm okay with it to a certain extent.
So
I
you're
wouldn't.
still kind of self-conscious
I'm
about
still
it?
self-conscious about it, but I try not to do it in public, I would say.
Apparently, talking to yourself is actually quite common. I don't have any stats around it, but apparently a lot of people do it. I haven't actually physically witnessed it apart from seeing you. So
I've seen a few people do it, and even in a corporate sense, people would just think out loud and they'll say stuff.
I think thinking out loud as opposed to talking to yourself is very different though.
Well, some people are classifying it as the same because like I remember catching someone when at my previous place, and we'll like talk about a particular scenario about work, and this person just mumbled on, and I'm like, what are you talking about? And they're like, oh shit, sorry, I'm just speaking out loud and talking to myself.
Yeah, I think that is talking to yourself, but then there's people who are just thinking out loud. Like, say something happened, they're like, "What the fuck?" And then you just turn around. Like that, I think is more like you're thinking out loud as opposed to you having a full conversation and like, "Oh, if I do this," I'm
Well,
gonna,"
I don't mean
sense.
I don't mean in the sense of me actually having a full blown conversation.
Hey Sam, how are you doing? Oh yeah, I'm feeling good. Oh no, I'm feeling a bit
Well,
this way.
strangely enough, there was someone that we used to work with who had full blown conversations.
Very interesting. Not gonna judge that, but cool because we're here about a you do you kind of situation. Another one that I always was self-conscious to myself about, and also something that I sort of still battling, is me being quiet. And the reason why I'm self-conscious with this is because I don't fully think that I'm introverted. I know that I'm introverted in a sense where I like to recharge my energy and I love to be by myself, which is another point that I was also self-conscious about. But I'm quiet because I truly believe if you don't really have anything to add or you don't really have anything to say, you don't always need to speak. Like, for example, when you're sitting in a group where your friends are eating dinner, everyone's talking. I'm more of a person as I like to listen and hear people's updates of their day or what's happening in their life. But back then I was always self-conscious because people were like, hey, how come you're not saying anything? Or how come you're not talking? Even in work, it was like that. And I felt like maybe I do need to start talking about something. But then when you start talking, you're just pulling shit out of your ass and you're not really having a conversation. So if it's not really adding anything or if it's not really doing anything, there's nothing wrong with you being the one that's listening. And the what taught me to change this mindset is a lot of people, especially when they come to me with like problems or they're just talking about their day, they're like, wow, you're a really good listener. And I think it's truly because now I need to understand that this is how I am. And I actually do love to listen, like listen just to listen, not to have something to say. And that made me come to terms about how I am.
You came to terms of understanding who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you know how you're saying that you're always the quiet person. You always sit in the background, like lurking.
I'm in the shadows.
You're in the shadows, watching. Have you come to your senses about that, or are you still self conscious about being quiet and like hiding?
I think depending on the situation at work, being quiet may not always be the best thing because you need to put forward your suggestions, your opinions, and your thoughts. So in that sense, sometimes I am self conscious because I have learned that if you don't say anything, if you don't put forward your recommendations, that's what I'm saying. If it doesn't add anything, you don't always have to say anything. In a work sense, sometimes you do need to step up and say, because if I don't, I have lost a lot of opportunities and people don't notice me because they think that I'm always going to be this person that's okay to do what they give me rather than me being autonomous or whatever it is. But in a friend circle, social sense, I have come to terms that this is just how I am. And I prefer being like that and I'm not going to stress myself out being like, okay, I need to say something, or what am I going to say, or what am I going to think, or what do I need to do? Like, there's no point doing that. Like, people will like you for you. And that's just how it is.
Yeah, no, I can definitely understand that. And I remember one of my old bosses, managers actually pointed it out for me. And I remember I was in a similar situation as you. And this boss and manager was like, dude, you're confident. Like you're confident in yourself. Just fucking say something. Just spit it out. Don't hide because then no one will know how you truly feel.
Yeah, but it's good to have a manager or like a team leader who can recognize that this is you and giving you the space to speak up, because a lot of times there's been places that I've worked at where I never got that space to speak up. So I felt like I really had to force myself in. And by doing that, I don't feel like that aligns with me because I don't like to force my opinions through.
Mm.
But a lot of people do that. And to sort of get myself out there and compete or still be heard, I have to do that, and that doesn't feel good. So to have a manager or someone who could recognize and be like, "Hey Sam, what do you think about this?" giving you the space to open up, I think that's really it's good to have someone like that.
Yeah, for sure. And that helps me realize that within like a professional sense, I need to apply that more.
Mm.
That definitely helped me in the past. But another thing that I was thinking about was everyone has a sense of depicting an image of your character on what you like, what your hobbies are, and things like that. With this one, I was really, really self conscious about because for me, I like collecting random shit. And
Yes, you do.
collecting
We
random
have
shit, like
cupboards taken over where I could have been putting my clothes in
relax.
there,
Hey,
but
you've
it's
got
covered in your.
this woman has 3 cupboards full of clothes.
We have like 5 cupboards filled up with your die-cast
No,
car
no, no, no,
stuff.
no, no,
You
no,
have your
no, no,
models.
no, no,
You
no,
have your
no,
own
no.
display cabinet of like
Relax.
Warhammers. Yeah.
Your clothes take up more than our stuff, bruh.
No, it doesn't. But
Anyway,
anyways.
where I was trying to get at before she interrupted is the fact that with things that I collect, generally the community that does collect these things appear to be a certain image. And
Such as?
like for example, like I collect Warhammer, and Warhammer is people would think it's a nerdy thing. I don't know. The perception of that is that.
What's Warhammer for those who don't understand?
Well, for the people that don't know, Warhammer 40K, it is a miniature figurine that has been around since the 80s or 90s.
But it's based off a game, isn't it?
It is based off a game, and yeah, it's just like figurines
It's
that you
like armies or something.
yeah, there's different I forgot what the word is. There's different races that you collect. You basically buy them in SKUs, you cut them, they're like little plastic figurines, and you build them, and you essentially like paint them by hand, or you can use like a spray thing.
So why were you self-conscious about this
So
collectible?
this specifically, I was very self-conscious because everyone that knows Warhammer, because it's been around for years in Australia, but people who see Warhammer, the community, they would assume that it's too nerdy or they're a particular kind of group, if that makes sense.
Stereotype?
Yes, there's like a stereotype of this community. So I was self-conscious about just collecting that, even though, yeah, I loved doing that
And that
stuff.
people would think that you are this stereotype?
Yeah. And I remember people at my workplace would ask me and I'd tell them and they're like, whoa. They'd be like, whoa. I'm like, what? And they're like,
what?
I'm like, what? And they're like, dude, that's, yeah, I wouldn't think that you are someone that collects that stuff. And it surprised people. And it's the same thing. Like I collect consoles, like gaming consoles, like, you know, your PlayStation stuff and Nintendos and things like that. It's just the same reaction. People are like, whoa, whoa. Because I think my image or my reflection is very much, I'm a gym junkie is what people think I am. So they wouldn't think or wouldn't feel that I would be into these kind of things.
Yeah. Actually, now that you talk about what people perceive you as opposed to what you truly are, that actually brings the biggest part of what I usually am self-conscious about is if you see me, I'm a short 156 centimeter, whatever that is in feet wise, tiny, typical Asian looking person. And you wouldn't think that I'm like into heavy weightlifting, into Muay Thai, into cars, and into all these things that aren't typical girly things and very Asian sort of stereotype. And I think that's the biggest thing that has conflicted myself in how people outside in society sees me as, and then what I truly do. And also with that sense of not afraid to conform to comfort zones where I'm always willing to try things. I think that's the part that always gets me, and it's probably something that I need to let go. We were talking about this in our previous episode, letting go. And just being so fixated of what people see me as and trying to fit into what they think I am, as opposed to just truly being okay with me being me, like me doing the things I love to do, things that I love to explore and be adventurous about. And that is just how it is. And not being afraid of being judged, I guess. So that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, actually, you bring that up brings some fucking memories back for me. And I used to exactly be like that. And I remember that Asian image. I used to be a skinny fella and people would judge me for being a weak, scrawny Asian dude. And I think that's part of the reason why I actually conformed with the aspect of not looking skinny. You know, coming into the gym and training and gaining strength and weight and making myself look jacked was part of a reason of that self-consciousness.
I think a part of it is hard though, because you being a guy, you're not that short, you're pretty tall, now you're very jacked. So you can physically move out of that image of what people see you as. Whereas for me, I am forever stuck this way. I can't be taller. I can't look less Asian because my face somehow just looks very Asian. So like even last week, I was just telling you, we were at the gym. I went over because these two guys were sitting next to this bench that I wanted to use. I just went over to ask them if I could use this bench, like if they were using it or not. And before I even opened my mouth, they looked at me as if they're like, oh shit, is this like a fob Asian coming to approach me? And as soon as I start talking, their face changed. I'm like, oh, okay, like she's actually not fob. And it's just these type of things that I see and pick up. And yeah, I don't know. I can't change the way that I look. And sometimes it does affect me, to be honest. But why is it affecting me? And do I need to be affected by it? The answer is probably no. So to me, for myself, note to self is that I need to let go of this thought. And people will think of you, like different types of people will always think of you a certain way, will think something about you, but don't let that affect you, because as long as you do what you do and you enjoy what you do and you be true to yourself, that's all that matters.
Yeah, that actually leads to that next point. More of the things that we were self-conscious about, have we essentially moved on from that? Have we finally accepted those self-consciousness feelings and thoughts?
I think a lot of the ones that I've already noted Mostly yes, and there are some that still linger, but one that I've come to terms with is being okay with being different. I used to always think so much about that, and I know that I always have a very different opinion, and it's not certainly opinion, even down to the things like someone asks a question, and I always think of it very differently to what general people think about. Like a really dumb one, not dumb, but like a really stupid example is there's a question where it was like, oh, draw a line on like draw a line on this word or something like that. And how people approach this question, everyone say out of a pool of 10, 9 people drew it exactly the same and I drew it very differently. And that's what I mean by I'm very different in the way that I think. And I used to be so self-conscious of that. And that comes into a lot of different forms, like how people ask questions at work, how people ask me certain questions, or people ask me to do something. I always do something very different, and I used to be really self conscious of it. But to me, even in creativity, it's good to have this different perspective and thinking a different way, because then how do you stand out and how do you come up with different ideas if you don't be yourself or think differently?
Yeah, and what you brought up is actually a strong point that I was going to bring up. And that was what I was going to lead to is yeah, being different is such a big thing. And that leads back to the things that I mentioned before. So like being different in the fact that I fucking collect all these things. Yes, I may appear like the way that I appear, but that's what makes me unique, I guess. And it took me a little bit of time to realize that and accept that because it's a conversation thing. As an example, the biggest thing that I get is, yeah, I love cars, I gym, and I used to do Muay Thai, and I do all these collecting things, and I'm like, holy fuck, you're such a different person. And I'm like, yeah, man, that's what makes me unique. So I think now I've come to that point of embracing that.
So, is there anything else that you used to be self conscious of, but you're okay with now?
I used to be quite self conscious about being so cleanly and clean. And I remember like everything I used to touch and do, I used to just clean straight away. And I used to be quite self conscious of being too clean. And now I've really just come to that realization that, hey, that's just the way I do things and that's okay.
And there are benefits.
Yeah, there's benefits to it. And I feel that at the biggest realization outside of being in public was you questioning how clean I was. And I think you've come to that realization that, oh yeah, you are just the way you are. Though sometimes, yes, I do annoy you about cleaning and doing shit like that.
A big nod. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's one of the things that I've really come to accepting.
Mm. Yeah, no, that's good. I think overall, with all of these things that we've mentioned, obviously these are specific to us, but if we ever felt self conscious or we don't feel like we fit into a social norm or whatever it is, what are some things that you would tell yourself to learn more about yourself and maybe even come to terms with this is just how I am? Obviously, setting aside that there are maybe some things that you notice and self reflect, and you may want to move yourself out of it or work better to become a better person. I think that's a different story. But these are personality things that it is what makes you you. Like, what are you going to tell yourself to be like, I'm okay with how I am?
Yeah, really, it comes down to, well, does it have a negative effect to everything in your life? Because if it does, then maybe that's something that you've got to change or adapt to certain things. But if it's something that you do personally that you just normally do, then embrace it.
Mm,
Just continue to do what you're doing. And don't be afraid of what people would be judging you because everyone's different, man. Everyone has their own fucking things that they do, their own particular ways or things that they would just action by themselves.
mm. I think another good tip is to think of it from the other end. So if you continue to hold yourself back from showing your true self, how are you going to feel? So going back into that example where I'm not afraid to go out of my comfort zone. I know it's uncomfortable, but I'm always the person that's willing to try it. And I deeply regret not going out to talk to people because other people didn't do it. And now I regret it. So think of the other end. So if you don't show your true self, you're only delaying yourself from being who you truly are. And how will that make you feel if you don't be your true self?
Yeah, it's more like you just don't, it doesn't give you the opportunity to figure out who you truly are.
And it also blocks you from meeting people who truly accept you for who you are, because you're just essentially people pleasing and you are putting up a front where this isn't you and it doesn't align with what you believe in. And you're just delaying that process of finding your tribe.
Yeah. But let us know in the DMs or even in the comments, were there things that make you feel self conscious in the past that now you've come to the acceptance phase like I have?
Actually, I want to know, what are some quirks that you have for yourself that other people may think is weird, but you love about yourself?
Yeah, let us know. But likewise, thank you for joining us, and we will see you guys in the next one.
Goodbye.
Peace.